All right. Well, welcome to the first traffic calming meeting for Colemont Drive. My name is David Greaves. I'm an engineer that works with NDOT on the traffic calming program. And we're meeting here virtually tonight, Thursday, July 24th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Quick review of tonight's agenda. We're going to start by doing a program overview where we talk about traffic calming in Nashville in general. Then I'd like to hear from both of you on what problems you may be experiencing on Colemont Drive, maybe some ideas that you have for what you'd like us to consider. And next, we're going to review some of the tools we have in our toolbox, talk about maybe how they can address some of the things you're experiencing. And then we have kind of drafted a preliminary concept design for us to discuss. It's a rough draft, so we're going to do some steps following tonight's meeting to sort of refine that. And then we'll finish the meeting by discussing the next steps in the project, how it'll move forward after tonight. For anyone who may be watching the recorded meeting on YouTube, there's also a way to give feedback rather than directly here. So there's a survey open that's live right now that can be accessed at engage.Nashville.gov/traffic-calming or by scanning the QR code that's currently on the right side of the screen. So that'll be open for at least a couple more weeks while we work on the design, and we'd love to hear from you. So to jump into the program overview, traffic calming is a program that focuses on residential streets. We prefer physical solutions that encourage lower speeds over significant lengths. And one of the primary goals of the program is speed reduction. Talk about the importance of that in just a moment. But before that, we like to go over the 3 E's of traffic calming. Those are education, enforcement, and engineering. Now we have engineering bold and underlined here because Nashville Department of Transportation has the greatest ability to affect safety on our roadways with good design. So basically building roads that are inherently safe rather than asking people to drive safely through education or enforcing the existing traffic laws. Now, certainly education and enforcement do happen, but tonight we're talking about a project that we want to kind of bake that into the design of the street to make sure that safety is happening at all times. The reason that speeding is one of the primary focuses of this program is because it has a direct effect on safety, and Vision Zero is the initiative in Nashville that imagines that nobody should have to be killed or seriously injured on our public roadways. Speeding ties into that because a pedestrian hit by a vehicle has a much greater chance of surviving if the vehicle's going 25 or below, and then 35 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour. Understandably, that risk goes way up as speeds increase. So in neighborhoods that we observe a good amount of speeding, we think it's important to do something to correct that. This is a really popular program. And in March of 2025, when Colemont was selected, you were one of 25 neighborhood streets that were chosen out of a group of over 600 applicants. So you can kind of see the scale of this program on the map on the right-hand side, where every one of those lines is a traffic calming project in some stage. The thinner magenta ones are those that have applied. The dark blue ones are ones that have been installed. And then all the other colors are projects that are somewhere in between, either selected or being designed. I think Colemont is showing up as green right now since we're in the meeting and design phase. But this is live at TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. So as this project progresses, people can see kind of where it is in the process. So there are a handful of things that the traffic calming program does design-wise. We'll talk about the tools in a minute, but there are also plenty of things that Metro Nashville does that are not traffic calming. So for anything that we're not able to cover with a project like this, we want to make sure everyone is aware of Hub Nashville for things like requesting sidewalks, cleaning up litter, potholes, really anything that Metro Nashville might do can be asked for through Hub. That can be accessed by calling 311 online at hub.nashville.gov or with a mobile app. So a little bit about how Colemont Drive was chosen in the traffic calming program. Basically, when a street applies, which Colemont did, that initiates a study where we count vehicles, see how many people are driving on the street. We also measure how fast they're going. We take a look at crash history to see if anybody has been, hit, killed, or injured in the last 10 years. We also take a look at whether or not you have sidewalks and if there are trip destinations like parks or schools nearby. I believe that Colemont scored points on all 5 of these categories, and we can dig into the details in just a sec. So this project runs from Coleridge Drive, so kind of the corner with the elementary school, and up to Keeley Drive. So it's just about 2 blocks. The cross streets are a little bit staggered, so it kind of looks like 3, but it is a relatively short length where we saw vehicles generally traveling around 29 miles per hour. You had a relatively high volume of 2009 vehicles. And one of the weird things about Colemont is it's pretty wide for what it is. So the width that we measured were between 36 and 37 feet. And that gives us a few options to talk about in terms of what sorts of design treatments we can propose. This is a map of the project. So you see to the south, we've got Cole Elementary School. And then this is just the segment up to Keeley Drive. This is a zoomed in shot of that live traffic calming tracker. So those turquoise lines that you see on Keeley Drive and Packard Drive, those are projects that have already been designed and are just waiting to be constructed. And then to the north of that, a section of Keeley, and I don't remember which road is immediately to the west, but those are projects that have already been installed. So I'm assuming you're familiar with those if you live on this stretch of Colemont, but anyways, this is just to say that there are other traffic calming projects in your neck of the woods if you'd like to check them out in person. So this is when I want to hear from you all if there is anything specific, about this street that you'd like for us to know about. I'm kind of curious to know what maybe inspired you all to apply for traffic calming, if Carol, you were involved, or if not, just any observations you have or what you're looking to get out of this project.
I have noticed that we've had a lot more traffic recently. Colemont seems to be a run through to get to the interstate. And we've had some cars that look like they're doing quite a bit over the speed limit. We've also noticed some people at the intersection of Keeley and Colemont that are doing donuts in the road. Also Colemont and Colemont Court, which is between Coleridge and Keeley that you're talking about. We've frequently seen people doing donuts at the end of that street. One of my main concerns is that this is so close to an elementary school where they do have walkers going to and from. Also, we have people that walk this route pretty regularly up to the school to enjoy the playground and things like that. We did have a child that lived across the street from us actually about 3 months ago, I believe, get hit as they'd gotten off a school bus and were crossing the street to go to their home. And I don't know how badly the child was hit, but we have seen an injury, and we do see children very regularly walking to school and walking home, of course. and don't want that happening to anyone else.
Yeah, well, that's awful. I'm sorry to hear that you've been experiencing all of that, and certainly sorry that there was a kid hit, just trying to get to school. Obviously, we are here to, try to help make the streets safer to avoid things like that in the future. So I've noted donuts at Keeley and Colemont. That's something that we can definitely take a look at. Um, and yeah, in terms of cut through traffic, we probably won't do anything that will like physically prevent anyone from using Colemont, but if it is seen as kind of a convenient, cut through, at the very least, we'd like to propose a design that, keeps the speeds at an acceptable level. Um, well, thank you for sharing. Council member, do you have anything to add?
Well, I certainly second all those comments by uh, a resident. Is there a chance that the section of Colemont from Tusculum Road to Coleridge could be added to this project? You've got the school right there. It just seems like we would want to be having traffic slowed from both sides of the school.
Yeah, I can definitely look into it. Um, we don't typically adjust limits at this stage in the game, but the fact that it is a school there, I can check with NDOT and see, if maybe they have another project going on, or how they, would feel about extending it. Um,
Yeah, you've got a church on one side, school on the other. There's only about 3 or 4 houses, but I'm sure that, and I will defer to our resident, uh, Carol, to see, but I don't think they just start speeding at Coleridge. And with the school there, I think it'd be important to have that extended if at all possible.
Great, I will look into it. Thank you. Um, All right. Well, are y'all ready to review some of the options we have for design tools?
Yes, please.
Great. Um, so in the traffic calming programs toolkit, the measure that we use most often are called speed cushions. These are modular rubber devices that are um, designed to create a bump in the road as you drive over. So they work similar to speed bumps, but with a higher target speed. We're looking for drivers to go, at or around the speed limit, not slow like way down to 5 miles an hour like you might in a parking lot. Um, these are about 3 inches tall. The 6 foot width is deliberate. The idea is that larger emergency vehicles would be less impacted than kind of smaller private vehicles. And they come in a variety of lengths depending on the situation. Here, we'd probably think about either 7 or 10.5, just given the proximity to the school. Similar to those are speed tables. These work the same. They're made out of the same materials. The only difference is they're significantly larger. Um, they don't have that benefit of reduced impact to emergency vehicles. So on routes that we expect might be, access to other neighborhoods, we tend to avoid them. But they're also something you may see around Nashville. And we generally favor these physical solutions as a core part of a traffic calming design because we know that they work well in achieving the program's goals. Um, what we're looking at is results from a study conducted in 2023 that saw the average speed come down from 31 miles an hour to 22 miles an hour. And the 85th percent speed came down from 37 to 25. So 85th percent speed, if you don't know, is the number where 85% of those measured were going that speed or below, and then 15% were going some amount higher than that. Um, So we were pleased with these results. We definitely expect to see more going forward, but generally this is sort of why you see so many cushions on traffic calming projects. In addition to cushions and vertical measures, though, we do use other tools. So in places where maybe we aren't able to do vertical measures, we'll do radar feedback signs. This is just a solar powered device that goes below a speed limit sign that shows the speed that a driver is going as they approach, with the hope that should they be going faster than the speed limit, they voluntarily slow down. This sees an average reduction of 6 miles an hour. So they don't do nothing. They have an effect, but they don't. They're not quite as like mandatory as vertical physical measures might be. So we tend not to rely only on these if we can avoid it. On wide roads, such as Colemont, we often consider pavement narrowing. So when we have a lot of pavement to drive in, that can sort of subconsciously induce higher speeds. People generally drive at the speed that they feel comfortable going. And when you have more room to work with, you feel comfortable going faster. So when we narrow roadways with white edge lines, that induces slower speeds just by making the roadway feel a little more claustrophobic, and thus people tend to drive a little more carefully. In areas without sidewalks, it can increase the comfort for pedestrians because you have a bit of a defined space that you can walk in and generally expect that vehicles might not be driving there. It's certainly not a sidewalk, and it doesn't physically prevent vehicles from crossing lines, but they do sort of help organize the space a little bit in those circumstances. Similar to pavement narrowing and applied to intersections, we have something called bulb outs. So where we have intersections that have a lot of pavement and large turning radii, that'd be like the curve that connects the two streets together. We see vehicles are able to take turns at much higher speeds. So that can be treated by shrinking the corner radii and kind of narrowing that pavement like you see in the image in the top left. And that has a few benefits. So it does reduce those turning speeds. That gives vehicles more time to notice if a pedestrian or a bicyclist or another car is in their way as they're trying to make that turn. But it also shortens the distance that pedestrians have to cross to get from corner to corner. So at the left is sort of an extreme example, but you can see that the crossing distances were cut almost in half in those cases, because now you're just crossing those two lanes of traffic rather than that full like 50 feet from ramp to ramp. And on streets that have on-street parking and quite a bit of it, it can improve the visibility by enforcing the existing parking code that says you're not allowed to park within 30 feet of a crosswalk. This just makes sure that people don't park so close to the corners that you can't see around them and look out for folks using the crosswalks. We also do chicanes. So this is something that may actually work well for Colemont if folks are interested. Basically on wide roads, what we can do is sort of do that narrowing, but also zigzag the center line along the length. And that forces vehicles to do some maneuvering as they're traveling along. And that reduces speeding because you're not able to go quite as fast and make all those turns. I'd say the major downside to this is it forces street parking on like one side or the other alternating. So it does reduce the number of places that street parking can happen. And sometimes we just want to be extra sensitive to that when we're considering this particular treatment. And then lastly, we have traffic circles. So these are similar to bulb outs, but rather than narrow from the outside in, it's narrowing from the inside out. This basically creates a small roundabout. It's not quite as designed as a roundabout might be, but basically it works the same. We're asking drivers to make kind of a counterclockwise turn around the circle, and that'll slow speeds just by forcing everyone to do that maneuvering. And with that, any questions about what I've covered before moving on to look at our draft concept design?
I'd like to see your design.
Awesome. So here's what we've got so far. I will say, so I guess I'll start by just kind of talking you through. We placed these cushions between 300 and 400 feet apart. That's kind of the lower half of our range. So usually we do that when we're looking for target speeds to be kind of as low as we can get them. Being in the proximity to the elementary school and the fact that there's an uncontrolled crosswalk at the corner of Coleridge Drive and Colemont, we thought that was an important thing to pursue. And we had room for 3 of them. Now, having heard that you have noticed people doing donuts at the corner of Keeley Drive and Colemont Drive, and knowing that both of those streets are relatively wide, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on bulb outs at the intersection of Keeley and Colemont, because that's one thing that we could do to make it a little less of a sea of pavement that is available for reckless driving like that. Any questions about this? Do you have other ideas, things you'd like for us to consider while we do our site visit and think more about the design?
I think that the speed cushions are a good option.
Got it.
Yeah,
Um,
I would also think that the bulb outs would be good at that intersection too.
yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same. Usually intersections that have donuts happening on them that's kind of an indicator that we should think about that. Cool. So I'll go ahead and make note of that. We'll check it out when we do our field visit. Yeah. Did either of you have thoughts on the chicanes idea? It would narrow up the pavement a bit, but the cushions very well may, achieve the same end.
Are those streets currently lined to narrow the?
I was looking at the aerial imagery today, and it didn't look like there were white lines on the
They're
edges,
not.
like separating the parking in the travel lanes. So it's a bit of a blank canvas.
That might also be helpful to narrow the street a little bit, at least it appear narrowed.
Yeah, that sounds good. I will make a note of that as well. Yeah, Colemont is certainly wide enough to benefit from the narrowing, and I think we'll probably wind up just making it look like a street parking space on either side.
Personally, I don't like the idea of narrowing it at all.
Oh yeah,
I like how wide it is.
got it. Good to know. So when I say narrowing, this is not like removing any asphalt. It would sort of just be separating the spaces where vehicles are parking and where other ones are driving.
We don't have a lot of vehicles that park actually on Colemont. Occasionally we do if there's some kind of an event at the school,
Hmm.
but it's very rare.
Or for school pickup.
Or for school pickup.
Miss Carroll, I'm not sure about your concerns. What we have found, we did that street narrowing. It's just paint. And
It's just paint.
certainly enough room for a car to go down. We've done it over here on West Crest, and it does help slow down traffic a little bit. Don't ask me why. It's a psychological thing, but
Okay,
I'm not sure if something I'm missing. Please explain it to me.
that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Feel free to look at West Crest, and I'm sure there's probably places over in your neighborhood that have this too, if you have any concerns.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that all sounds good. We've definitely got a lot of things to look into. That's a good segue into our next slide. So this is a flow chart of how all traffic calming projects proceed. Like I mentioned, this started with an application from residents. We then did our prioritization and selection exercise, kind of studying all the streets that have applied and choosing those most in need. And then the red circle neighborhood meeting is where we are tonight. So next up is we need to do a field review. So we're going to go do a site visit, kind of check out Colemont in person. I'm also going to have some conversations with my partners to see, if this project might be extended due to the school, and then kind of look into some of those design options that we just discussed. Once we've got a design done, we can either schedule a second neighborhood meeting to review, kind of take a look at what we came up with, look at anything that may have changed. But what we can also do is post those plans online and move forward with the online ballot. So basically just skipping the second neighborhood meeting and deciding whether or not the project is wanted. And then after the ballot, should 66% of people who vote vote in favor, the construction project will begin, once it reaches the front of the queue. So it is a pretty long line right now. We generally see between 8 and 10 months between a ballot passing and a project being built. So there is a bit of lead time. We're not going to be out there, like tomorrow or anything. We do leave it up to you all if you feel a second neighborhood meeting is going to be helpful. We're happy to do it. It really doesn't, affect our workflow too much. So feel free to let me know if anyone feels one way or another if a meeting is preferred.
Is it possible to have a postcard sent again for the online ballot?
Yes, so I'll skip to this next slide. When the ballot starts, we kick that off by sending a postcard to the same group of people that received the invitation for tonight's meeting. And then that includes a unique ID. So we'll have on there the street name, the date that voting closes, and then the code that you'll plug into the form that makes sure the votes that we get are the ones that we expected to hear from.
I think as long as we can review the plans online and then have access to the ballot voting, and the postcards are very helpful. By the way, thank you so much for sending those. I think
Of
that would
course.
suffice. I don't think that a second meeting would be necessary.
Okay. Well, yeah, that works for me. We can make that the plan, and if I hear otherwise, then we'll let everyone know. So that ballot period is going to be open for around 6 weeks. You get to vote yes or no. And like I mentioned before, it's 2/3 of respondents voting yes means like a project has succeeded. So it's not 2/3 of like every single house. It's only if you vote. This is the ballot zone. Now it is subject to extension. So if we did extend it, we would include these 5 houses, the church and the school as well. But this is the group that received postcards for tonight. Basically, it's just every owner of a parcel that touches the affected street. We'll save ourselves some trouble and remove duplicates. We also don't send these to vacant lots. We don't have any here, but like empty land is not eligible to vote on this. Churches and schools each will get 1 vote, and then businesses, if they're not like a residence, do not. I do like to emphasize, we like to encourage people to talk to their neighbors when these postcards start showing up, because sometimes people get them at addresses they may not expect. So we are always happy to look up somebody's code if they think they should have gotten a postcard but didn't. So feel free to let people know they're welcome to contact us, if they didn't get one. And that pretty much is it. Do y'all have any more questions or thoughts? Things to express before we wrap up for tonight?
No, I'd just like to thank you so much for your time and for planning this and for making sure to include the community in it.
Yeah, of course. I really appreciate y'all's time spent letting us know, how we can make this a successful project. So I appreciate you joining here tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll express my thanks to Miss Carol too, and to you, David, for having the program. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Well, y'all have an excellent rest of your evening, and you'll be hearing from us, fairly soon about news on the project.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Bye.